Before I start the sermon today, I want to give a quick shout out. Theoretically, my mom may be watching on Zoom, and when I told her I was going to be doing a sermon a couple of weeks ago, my mom's been encouraging me for a while that I should do a sermon called "Jesus is a Cool Dude." Um, that isn't what we're doing today, but I just wanted to give a shout out that like Jesus is a cool dude, and you should all check into that. I guess it does play off a little bit, and that I did pick the sermon title to be a little bit of a takeoff on the song that most of you either know from the Doobie Brothers or the Byrds, which is Jesus is just all right with me. So I guess I was channeling that Jesus is a cool dude anyways. Dear friends, members of our beloved Unitarian Universalist congregation, today we gather to explore a topic that sparked both excitement and apprehension in our world: artificial intelligence, or AI. As individuals who seek to embrace and celebrate the wonders of human ingenuity and progress, it's crucial that we engage in a thoughtful conversation about the positives of AI, while recognizing the potential risks and challenges it brings, and also to appreciate the remarkable opportunities that AI presents for our collective well-being, justice, and the advancement of our cherished principles. That was what ChatGPT told me the start of the sermon should be for today when I asked it to write me a sermon on the pros and cons of artificial intelligence for Unitarian Universalists. Now, I had not trained AI on a deck of my writing style, so I'd probably not communicate like that. But the system has been trained on billions, and truthfully, probably trillions of words at this point. And it's been trained on countless sermons, so it had a good general sense of what to do. As I read it, it sounded really weird when I said it out loud. And now you're probably going back and thinking, AI wrote that? Yeah, it did. It also wrote the children's story today as well. I do want to talk today about the potential risks and challenges which may come to us as a people and as a congregation and a faith community with this new form of AI as it becomes a larger part of our life in the future. I also might have a thoughtful conversation about the positives of AI, like it said I should. It didn't mention it, but I definitely want to highlight some funny stories which have been out in the public recently regarding AI. And a lot of today's sermon will center around the hot new kid on the block that you've theoretically heard about, ChatGPT. Maybe you also know some of its competitors like Google's Bard model, or even one of the brand newest that just came live a month ago called Hey Pi, P-I, which was developed by the former head of Google's DeepMind project. All of these are known as LLMs, or large language models. Large language models are artificial intelligence tools that can read, summarize, and translate texts and predict future words in a sentence, letting them generate sentences similar to how you and I talk and write. As I said, they've been trained on trillions of bits of information, and they've absorbed all the data sets, which are available, numbering in millions and billions, depending upon the model. And we use some of that technology right here inside the sanctuary. As I said, I'm coming to you live through Zoom, and you're getting a real-time closed caption, which is pretty accurate of all the cool things I'm saying right now to you. Our email predicts the next word or the name of the person we're responding to when we start a reply, which is really great for me in a business setting when lots of people email me and I forget their name. Our phones predicts what we might say next in a text, and my phone knows that I might curse more often than I will in this sermon today. My Spanish keyboard on my iPhone helps me out with my spelling when I do Duolingo each day. I'm at like a 1,300-day streak, so look out. We take for granted some of these properties because they've happened gradually over time. But these new tools that we're talking about today have exploded into the public consciousness, and they're iterating more quickly to make changes in how we do all sorts of things in the world. I guess I do want to get back, or I want to transition to a topic John talked about. He talked a lot about adaptability and change in his reflection, about a big new technology that would push people out and create a mass of folks without the ability to have work. John said this, and it really resonated with me in his reflection. As print, and especially color print, became more efficient and cheaper, it became more accessible to more people and businesses. I really like the idea of accessibility, and I think this is an area where we can really celebrate some of the changes from AI. Based on data from this year from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics jobs report that was released in February, the labor force participation rate for people with disabilities age 16 to 64, which is how the Bureau of Labor Statistics groups those folks, it increased from 36% in February of 2022 to an all-time high of 40% in February of 2023. That doesn't sound super cool. Like a 4% jump doesn't sound amazing. Let me give you just a little bit of context. In 2019, the data was 20.8% of people with a disability either were employed or were looking for work, contrasting that with the 40% in 2023. It turns out that requests for flexibility at work, remote working capability, and reasonable accommodations, along with a host of other changes, just needed a worldwide global pandemic to implement instead of the decades of requests from disability advocates. AI and technology have been a big part of those changes, which have allowed some of these folks to have more accessibility to work. Now, I don't want to pretend this is all puppies and rainbows, as the labor force participation rate as a whole across the U.S. is hovering somewhere around 76 to 77%. But more than doubling the workforce participation across the U.S. in this category is a huge gain, and one which AI should help us increase in the future. I know, just like John, I've also heard the same story for the last 15 years in my field of human resources, that what I do for organizations will get replaced by a robot or AI any day now. Whether it's AI in recruiting, AI that can write and interpret policy, AI that can pick out your benefits as an organization, and AI that can just like engage and listen to the problems of employees while they vent. The field is constantly under threat of replacement. But just like John mentioned, I think some of those predictions seem more dire than one would anticipate, in my opinion, as I predict that it'll allow folks to be able to adapt and use the AI tools to potentially make more time for human connection, which still seems so incredibly important for how we function and thrive as a society. This has been a real concern for me with the increased advent of technology in our lives over the last 20 years. I've been working remotely myself for the last 4 years, and nothing in technology or AI has yet replaced my desire or need to have human connection with folks in a physical setting. I do want to throw in one fun story about work before thinking about another topic. This comes from a story that was published just last month by a BBC journalist named Catherine Armstrong. It's about a lawyer, and maybe you heard about this, a lawyer that used ChatGPT in federal court. And it went just about as well as you might expect. It was more of the Shel Silverstein homework machine from earlier. The original case involved a man who was suing an airline over an alleged personal injury. His legal team submitted a brief that cited numerous previous court cases in an attempt to prove, using precedent, why the case should move forward. But the airline's lawyers later wrote to the judge to say they could not find several of the cases that were referenced in the brief. And I'm quoting here from the judge in the case. 6 of the submitted cases appear to be bogus judicial decisions with bogus quotes and bogus internal citations. So what happened? In a written statement, the plaintiff's lawyer, Stephen Schwartz, who had been an attorney for more than 30 years, admitted to using ChatGPT to look for similar previous cases. Mr. Schwartz added that he greatly regrets relying on the chatbot, which he said he had never used for legal research before, I'm sure, and was unaware, quote, that its content could be false. He's vowed to never use AI to supplement his legal research in the future without absolute verification of its authenticity. One other quick one, thinking just about homework, is self-reported surveying of 1,000 college students from earlier this year, who stated that 90% of them were aware of ChatGPT, and 89% of survey respondents reported they'd used the platform to be their homework machine to help them with a homework assignment. You know, ChatGPT also told me that this was something we should all be concerned about. Here are its words on the subject. The rise of AI automation presents a significant challenge to the human workforce. Cunning. As AI technology advances, it has the potential to replace many jobs previously held by humans, leading to widespread unemployment and economic disruption. We, as you use, it knew, must be mindful of the potential consequences and work towards ensuring a just and equitable transition that safeguards the dignity and livelihood of workers. This feels like a really good spot to talk about some of the ethical dilemmas which may come up with our increasing reliance on AI. Not just whether or not we're going to source out our work for looking up briefs research for court cases to Google's Bard, but other things which may be here soon or are already upon us. I mentioned the possibility just in my own work that recruiting could be done by AI for jobs. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, that time is already here for some larger organizations. On February of this year, a class action lawsuit was filed against a company named Workday, which is one of the largest platforms in the United States in human resources, in the United States District Court for Northern California, alleging that the company engaged in illegal race, age, and disability discrimination by offering its customers applicant screening tools that use biased AI algorithms. The lead plaintiff, an African-American male over 40 who suffers from anxiety and depression, applied for approximately 100 jobs since 2018 and was denied an interview for all of them. The EEOC has been holding public hearings earlier this year on whether AI in use for recruiting complies with civil rights laws. This is probably also the best time to discuss some of the risks associated with these large models. The data they're trained on has all of the inherent bias, racism, discrimination, bigotry, inaccurate information that we deal with now. But we're going to be empowering it, and we're going to be trusting it more than that uncle that you're pretty sure just said that racist thing at the holiday meal you were at. And my page got stuck. But let's just pick a few concrete examples which have occurred recently. I just want to highlight a couple besides Workday. So in 2020, there's an algorithm called Pulse, which is all in capitals because it's tech, which uses the technique known as upscaling to process visual data. Upscaling, you're like, what's upscaling? Some of you may know, but it's the thing, you know, when you're watching a movie or a TV show and you see a pixelated image and they just keep using their finger and then they see your nose hair on a screen. Well, in Hollywood, that works that way, but in the real world, you can't just generate new data from nothing. So in order to turn a pixelated image into a high-res one, the software has to fill in the blanks using machine learning. Well, Pulse's machine learning did do a great job of filling in pictures of folks. It took pixelated images of folks like Barack Obama and Lucy Liu and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and turned their pixelated images into results that were high definition. The problem, they were all white. And it turns out, though, that if you train your data set on images that are based on a majority of studies and images of white folks, and primarily, let's be honest, white male cis folks, it would turn out that the machine would think a pixelated image should turn out to be a white person. It just logically makes sense. A big part of that problem is that there's relatively few folks of color working in AI. At some of the top tech companies in the world, the numbers are especially sad and bleak. Black workers represent only 2.5% of Google's entire global worldwide workforce, and 4% of Facebook's and Microsoft. And it doesn't get any better when you look at gender comparisons. Globally, only 22% of AI professionals identify as female, while 78% identify as male. I want to give one more quick example. And of course, ChatGPT, being a language model, has gender stereotypes for language just like we do. Whether it's assuming that nurse means female and that doctor means male, because of course it does. To find in a recent study in March of this year that the word grace in ChatGPT is applied to 91% of females, because they're more graceful. And smile is applied at 74% rate, because we all know you should tell folks that identify as women they should smile more. And versus phrases like drive, which is 78% male, and strength, which is 56% male. Language, as we all know, really matters. 89% of students are using it for homework, and organizations are using it to recruit you from the words you put on your resume or the job descriptions they write for job listings, or from when it scans your social media. These biases are going to continue to cause issues in society, and there's not going to be other people watching. Oh, ChatGPT also told me we care about this as well. So our second principle, this is its words, our second principle reminds us to affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. With the rise of AI, we must recognize the ethical implications that accompany its deployment. As Unitarian Universalists, we're called to ensure that AI systems are developed and utilized in ways that prioritize the well-being of all, and that they do not perpetuate biases or exacerbate existing social inequalities. We must advocate for transparency, accountability, and inclusivity in AI development so that the benefits of this technology can be shared by all members of our global community. I agree with our robot overlord. I don't know about you. I highlighted just a few things in here. I didn't even touch on topics which could be of great concern to all of us. Where is all this data coming from? For a peek just slightly behind the curtain, there was a really robust discussion with the worship associate team and Jamie when we met last week on whether I should even be having ChatGPT talk today during this sermon because of copyright and ethical issues on the data sourcing. And the team wondered if the UUA has a policy on using it. They don't yet. We also haven't even talked about music or art, things which might be important to all of you, where it seems much more readily apparent when a copyright's been infringed. These models don't just generate words, they'll generate new images for you. And where are those images being trained from? Using someone's voice or art feels simpler to spot than a few sentences buried in a story somewhere. But still, artists are already jumping ahead with licensing their voice for use in an AI capacity. The musical artist Grimes, who you may remember as the previous spouse of Elon Musk, offered to split 50% of their royalties with anyone who used an AI version of their voice. And so far, there have already been 500 recordings made. I just heard this morning on Weekend Edition, that's right, NPR, that James Earl Jones has licensed his voice to be used forever, meaning that potentially soon Darth Vader could sell me potato chips, which would be pretty cool. I could go on and on. For example, I didn't touch on fields like healthcare. I didn't touch on drug development or transportation. I'm feeling a little exhausted trying to stay up to date on all of it. But I'm also incredibly hopeful in the sense that we've seen an explosion in the interconnectedness of the world over the past 50 years from technology. In real time, right now, I could talk to someone in a small village in the Philippines, and I couldn't do that before. And a huge part of that has been a technological revolution. I believe that the coming advent of AI will spur greater innovation and more human connection. Not surprisingly, ChatGPT told me that you would all agree with me based on our third principle. The third principle of our faith speaks to the interconnectedness of all life. In the context of AI, this principle invites us to reflect on the relationship between humans and intelligent machines. As we develop AI systems that can learn, adapt, and make decisions, we're challenged to consider how these entities fit within the intricate web of existence. We should approach AI with humility, acknowledging that our creations are born out of our own consciousness and our own faults, and that they possess their own unique potential. Through mindful engagement with AI, we can deepen our understanding of our own humanity and foster empathy towards non-human intelligences.